Good afternoon. We have some important updates for you, both on the path of the storm and the timing of the storm. Hurricane Sandy is now moving twice as fast as when I came to speak to you about 4 hours ago. And we are now expecting landfall in the Atlantic City area to happen within the next hour, sometime between 6 and 7 o'clock. We're at a moment now where evacuation is no longer possible, and we're no longer able to come and rescue people. This has become particularly problematic in Atlantic City, where, for whatever reason, Mayor Langford urged people to stay in shelters in the city. Despite my admonition to evacuate, he gave them comfort, for some reason, to stay. We now have a large number of people, we can't quantify it at this point, that are in Atlantic City, and at this juncture, there is no other way for us to go in and get them. They're going to have to ride out the storm there until at least 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I cannot, in good conscience, send rescuers in as the storm is about to hit in the next hour, nor can I send them in the dark, given all the various hazards that would occur potentially to them. And so I asked these people to leave. For some reason, the mayor, in his initial conversations with the public, told them he didn't want his people leaving Atlantic City. So you have people staying, either self-sheltering in their homes or sheltering in some city shelters there, one of which is literally a block away from the bay in a school, which is now flooded completely. So for those of you who are on the barrier islands who decided it was a better idea to wait this out than to evacuate, and for those elected officials who decided to ignore my admonition, this is now your responsibility. If you're still able to hear me, we need you to hunker down and get to the highest point possible in the dwelling that you're in. We will not be able to come and help you until daylight tomorrow. Please try to hunker down and stay safe until then. We've deployed emergency crews throughout the day to assist individuals, particularly in Atlantic City, with evacuation. But as I said, it's no longer safe for us to do it, so we're stopping now. The winds are very high. We're seeing heavy rainfall, and darkness obviously is quickly creating this kind of dangerous situation for our first responders. At this time, they'll be responding to calls to calls for service only. As soon as it's safe to send them in, we'll send them back in, but that probably won't be until tomorrow morning. We've pre-staged our first swift water strike team in Atlantic City. That's a 21-member team and 4 boats, prepared to launch at 7 a.m. tomorrow for shallow and swift water rescue in Atlantic City. We're keeping 2 other swift water strike teams at Lakehurst. That's 40 trained members, and a total of 10 boats that could deploy anywhere else in New Jersey along the coastline as needed or requested. We'll wait to see what happens both tonight and tomorrow morning. Also now situated at Lakehurst are 2 federally supported USAR Type 1 teams from out of state. That's 180 high-tech urban search and rescue personnel that are fully equipped and self-sustaining, and they also have waterborne capabilities. Regarding flooding, we're also starting to see challenges now in Salem and Cumberland counties on streams and rivers because of heavy rains and tidal push, which we continue to monitor. Luckily, at this point in the rest of the state, we are not yet seeing indications of flooding. There's still a lot more water to come, but at this point, things are positive. As I said earlier, state government is closed tomorrow. Education Commissioner Cerf is encouraging closure of schools to ensure student safety. 509 of our 580 some districts are saying that they will be closed tomorrow. I hope the rest of them will follow suit as soon as possible. All these decisions are made at the local level, but I would hope that they would look at the conditions we're dealing with and would make the smart move and not have school buses out on the road tomorrow. We don't know what the condition the roads will be in. We're going to anticipate during the evening a lot more downed trees and downed wires. It'll just be a very dangerous situation to move folks around tomorrow, we believe. So let's leave these roads open for emergency personnel to get around. Department of Health has requested out-of-state assistance for 75 ambulances to help with pre- and post-storm medical transport. 22 ambulances arrived from Indiana today. I want to thank Governor Daniels for his assistance in this regard, for sending 22 ambulances from Indiana. They arrived today, traveled from Indiana to New Jersey, and I want to thank Governor Daniels for for his help in this regard. Let's talk about road closures. Garden State Parkway is closed in both directions from the Driscoll Bridge down to the end of the Parkway in Cape May. And the Turnpike is currently closed from exit 7A to exit 8. There are 42 other road closures in 13 counties. Now, when a road is closed, that means it's closed. Now, we can't put a truck at every on-ramp to the Garden State Parkway. But we have announced that the road is closed. We have signs up saying it's closed. Yet we still have people who decide if there's not actually a piece of equipment blocking their way onto the parkway, they're going to drive on it anyway. If you are listening on the radio and you're thinking about getting on the parkway from 129 South, don't. If you're on the parkway between 129 South, get off. This is not acceptable conduct. What's going on and what will go on is when it gets dark, you're not going to be able to see where water is pooled and become extremely deep. And we have flooding conditions on various parts of the Turnpike over those 120, or Parkway rather, over those 129 miles. You could get yourself in significant danger being on those roadways from 129 south. So please do not get on the Parkway. Even if there's not a truck blocking the on-ramp, it does not mean the road is open. The road is closed. Sign says stay off the road, so please stay off the road. As for power outages, our latest numbers are 348,500 without power. Unfortunately, we expect that to get significantly higher. The breakdown from Atlantic City Electric is 55,000, JCP&L 197,000, PSE&G 94,000, and Orange and Rockland 2,500. The companies are reaching out to states outside this weather pattern and have had some success in obtaining additional crew commitments for statewide linemen, servicemen, and tree cleaning workers to deal with this. PSE&G has secured 526 tree contractors to clear damaged trees and limbs from as far away as Texas, Indiana, Illinois, Florida, and other states, as well as Canada. New Jersey OEM was successful in assisting JCP&L in securing permission to bring in additional helicopters for damage assessment. Once we can get them up in the air, they'll be able to give a greater view to them more quickly about where lines are damaged and for use of additional landing sites throughout the state. Storm is causing a great deal of damage. If you're looking at some of the pictures that we're seeing from the Jersey coastline, I finally heard one person say, maybe our decision to stay this time wasn't such a good idea. I've been in touch with President Obama this afternoon. The president called me at about 2:15 this afternoon. It was just the two of us on the phone. We had a good conversation. President wanted to know if we had everything that we needed to be able to respond to the storm from a federal perspective. I told him at this point we did. He wanted to check on the level of cooperation with FEMA. I said it was excellent because it is. And he told me that if at any point over the next 48 hours I was not getting something for the federal government, that I should call him directly at the White House and that he was going to be there and that I should just not worry about dealing with anybody else, call him. So I appreciate that call from the president. It was very proactive, and I appreciate that type of leadership, and I appreciate the president's telephone call. And if we do need something, I've got the number, and I'll be sure to use it. As of this afternoon, there were about 2,800 residents in state and local shelters, and the 4 state-supported shelters had about 1,800 residents. County shelters have not yet reached capacity in most of the state, so residents should continue to use the state as the last stop after friends and family, municipality, and county. Right now, our stand-up state shelters are safe. They're staffed and stocked with food, water, and medications. And again, you can go to nj211.org, nj211.org to find shelter locations by county if you need to get one now. A few things in closing, and I'll take your questions. If you are in the Barrier Islands still, I want to go back to this. Do not try to get out now unless you have information that there is a completely safe way to get out. The flooding is significant on the barriers, and you're putting yourself in danger. The best advice I can give you now, after you having ignored our advice all along, is to get to the highest point possible in the shelter you're in and to hunker down until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then to call authorities to ask to be rescued. And we'll put you in queue behind the other people that we need to rescue, and we'll get those swiftwater boat folks out there to begin urban search and rescue throughout the areas of the Barrier Islands. I'm very disappointed in the fact that some decided to disregard my instruction, in fact, my order, and I'm concerned that it might lead to the loss of life. I'm extraordinarily disappointed in elected officials who decide to tell people to directly contravene an order from the governor. That's going to cost people significantly over the course of the next number of hours, unfortunately. I hope, I pray, that there won't be any loss of life because of it. The rest of this team stands ready to continue to work throughout the night to get things done. I think we're staring at the worst 4 to 6 hours of the storm coming, starting in about 15 minutes or so. And then we'll be able to start to look to see, given how quickly the storm started to move now, and maybe by tomorrow early evening, the ability to start to look at damage assessment and see what we can do about beginning to assemble recovery teams. So that's where we are now. I'm happy that the storm has moved more quickly. I think it will help us, especially with flooding being less severe than it might have otherwise been, because it's coming more quickly and will miss, for the most part, the high tide period of this evening. So let's hope it doesn't slow down for some reason, hits shore, and then let's get moving and let's get everything done. Last thing I'll say is to the folks out there who still have power or on TV or listening on radio is please stay home. We're almost near the end of this now, at least this first phase of the problem. And if you're safe already, you're most likely to continue to stay safe. If you lose power, be careful about the lighting of candles and all the rest of that. Don't start fires someplace else in the state, in your home, because you're not paying attention. But stay safe. Keep your children close to you. Continue to listen for announcements, and we will continue to work hard here to make sure that as many people in New Jersey as we can keep safe, we will keep safe. Questions? Michael.
Governor, you say 348,500 homes are without power?
Yes, sir.
The winds don't seem that strong yet. Is that from trees toppling, or is it from flooded substations, or do we know?
The winds aren't as strong here, Michael, but look at the winds on the coastline. I mean, what you're finding is most of those outages are on the coastline. Atlantic City Electric and a lot of the JCP&L territories along the coast. What I'm worried about, Michael, is those numbers are going to go up exponentially because the wind is going to follow the rain. So we're going to have even more wind coming inland later on tonight, through the night and morning, tomorrow morning. So, I'm still concerned the outages will go up significantly more. You're right. We've had some significant wind here, but not hurricane-type wind, but they've had hurricane-type wind at the coastline. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the outages happen. Also, the JCP&L has made the decision to power down their substations on the Barrier Islands to avoid any further damage to the substations at the Barrier Islands. So they're going to be little or no power on those Barrier Islands. May already have happened. No. He said he didn't want his people. He said he didn't want his people leaving Atlantic City. Yes. Yes. I know that there's some county shelters where there's still some space outside the city, but inside the city, I don't know exactly the number of shelters that we had. Does anybody, Eddie, do you know? We don't know the number of shelters exactly. I know I was on the phone with the county executive, with Dennis Levinson, to try to get a handle on exactly what was going on down there. I know that's where I got the information that there was one school that was being used as a shelter that was 1 block away from the bay, which is now completely underwater. So I don't know. You'd have to ask Mayor Langford. I don't know. All I know is I did read him say that he didn't want his people leaving the city, that they would shelter in the city, despite the fact that the governor ordered the evacuation of his city and the closing of the casinos.
Governor, on Saturday at the Atlantic City press conference, there was some questions about why they were doing this. And the concern they relayed was basically they wanted everyone to leave, but they were worried that after, I guess a lot of people were angry after the Irene evacuations. So they were worried a lot of residents weren't going to leave. So they call these shelters of last resort. But are you saying these should not have been an option?
No, they shouldn't have been an option because it keeps them on the island. How are they a shelter of last resort? Last resort for what? You might as well stay in your homes in Atlantic City if you're going to stay than to go to these shelters. And I understand there's some people, listen, I've addressed this before, I understand there were some people who were angry who we evacuated off the coastline last year when the storm didn't turn out to be as bad. I will never understand these people. They came home to very little property damage and they were alive. And they're angry because they spent a couple of days at Rutgers. We're going to see how they feel now when they stayed. I mean, it's just not acceptable conduct. And now I'm going to have federal and state emergency personnel going in there first thing tomorrow morning with live down electrical wires all over the place, risking their lives. Because Mayor Langford was worried that some of his people were angry. That's not leadership, everybody. Hold on. I just want to get the guy back here. I can't tell yet. You know, we still don't have damage assessments, but we know the story. Listen, from what I've seen so far, and this is preliminary, it's the coastline. It's the coastline from Cape May County, you know, up through Ocean and southern Monmouth is where we're seeing the highest winds and the greatest amount of water. But again, we're going to have to wait to see. I'm not ready to make an assessment when the worst, 6 hours of the storm is still ahead of us. But at least at this point, that's the one that's been the most drastically affected. Not yet. No. A little bit of an improvement from a few hours ago because it sped up. I mean, what we were worried about was that this was supposed to come on landfall anywhere between 9 and 12 tonight when high tide was supposed to be at its peak between 8 and 9 o'clock. That would increase the coastal flooding significantly and put more pressure on inland flooding. So the fact that the thing doubled its speed, I mean, initially it was moving at 14 miles an hour, it's now moving at 28 miles an hour. The fact that it doubled its speed is probably the first bit of good news we've gotten in this storm. So now I've got to see how much it really does help, but it at least is the first bit of positive news that we have about it. Its increased speed is helpful to us. Yeah. Yes. Yep. It will slow down when it reaches land. They always do. But if it's got that kind of momentum coming in, it will probably move out more quickly. Save us. At a minimum, it's going to save us anywhere from 3 to 6 hours because we thought we'd be waiting till between 9 and 12 for it to come on shore. So we know that much. Even if it slows down, it saves us that initial 3 to 6 hours that we would otherwise had tacked on to the back end. You had a follow-up, sir? I don't know. I mean, it's going to depend on what happens with the coastal flooding tonight. Because the part of the problem is that because of the wind and the rain, during low tide, a lot of the water did not drain out from the city. Right? So you expect water comes in during high tide, drains back out during low tide. A lot of the water did not drain out during low tide because of the winds coming from the ocean and because of the additional rain. So now you're piling another second high tide, an astronomical high tide with the full moon on top of that with more rain. I can't make an assessment on it until I see what happens in terms of how high are the water levels in Atlantic City. We know that in certain parts of Atlantic County, including Atlantic City, the water level was as high as 5 feet. If you're going to add significantly to that, you're going to start to really run the risk of loss of life because people are going to run out of places to go. Yeah.
Any reports of storm-related deaths so far?
We had one fatality of a woman that was, I think it was yesterday, being evacuated out of Atlantic City. It appears that she just died of a heart attack, but we still don't have any final reports back on her on the cause of death. But she said she wasn't feeling well when she was being evacuated. She was loaded into an ambulance, brought to the hospital, and she died at the hospital. So it's storm-related in the sense that she was being evacuated, and whether that stress caused a heart attack or not, we don't know. We don't even know if it was a heart attack, but it was a sudden death. That's the only one that I know of at the moment. Michael. No, in fact, I saw reports that it might come a little bit further south. I called the National Weather Service myself right before I came down here. There will be some additional surge in the Delaware Bay, but not surge that will affect the Delaware River. So we're not going to see, at least at this time, the kind of surge in the Delaware River that would imperil Lambertville, the Trenton area, and upward from there. But we will see some minor additional storm surge in the Delaware Bay because it came in a little bit lower. I can get you the name of the school. I don't remember. I was taking notes upstairs. I don't have it with me. But it was a school. Yeah. Don't remember. I wouldn't tell you that. I just remember it was a school. We'll get you the information. That was my understanding from County Executive Levinson, but again, that's secondhand from the county executive. We're still trying to figure that out, Jenica. At first I heard of it. I called the county executive to try to get some more intelligence of what was going on in Atlantic City, because we're hearing anecdotal stuff that I've learned now over the course of these storms you can't trust. So I called Denny to ask him to get me some intel on it, and he was the one who started to tell me those things. So we'll get more information for you as we gather it. OEM is working on gathering more specific information, as is Homeland Security, on the sheltering situation in Atlantic City, because we need to know what we're going to have to deal with in terms of getting people out of there tomorrow morning. How many people are we talking about? We still don't know how many people we're talking about, because we haven't gotten that information from the city. Yes. Because most of the other barrier island towns evacuated as they were asked to. As I said, we had Atlantic County was the biggest problem. Brigantine, and Atlantic City, Ventnor, we had lower compliance of evacuation in those towns than we did in the Ocean County towns and the Cape May County towns. And so that's where we centered our concern at this point. In Atlantic City in particular, because people were sheltered in shelters of last resort that weren't necessarily safe. John, let me take John's question. No, it's better news for North Jersey. As I've said before, the further south the storm came on shore, the less water there would be north of the storm. Now, there's still a significant amount of water north of the storm. We're talking about 3 to 5 inches of rain north of the storm, which is, going to soften ground, and we're still going to have those winds in the northern part of the state, probably for the next 24 hours. So I think we're still going to see some significant damage in the northern part of the state, downed wires, downed trees. But right now, at least, in both the Raritan River Basin and the Passaic River Basin, we are not seeing significant flooding incidents. Now, that can change depending upon conditions changing. But right now, John, I think that, coming on further south was helpful to the northern part of the state, but obviously really devastating to the southern part of the state. And I have to say really clearly to folks, you're going to be shocked, I believe, when you start to see some of the pictures that come out of the South Jersey shore. There's going to be significant property damage down there, significant beach erosion, significant infrastructure damage. And so I feel awfully for the people at the Jersey Shore in Ocean, Atlantic, and Cape May counties for the damage that they're suffering now and are going to continue to suffer for the next number of hours. But they have my word that we're going to get down there as quickly as we can, assess the damage, work with the federal government to try to repair it as quickly as possible. Sir, you have a follow-up? I don't have. You see, here's the thing. They were very clear with us that they were handling it. We offered, and we did, in fact, send New Jersey Transit buses down to Atlantic City on Saturday and offered to take people off of the island. We had very few takers. In large measure, the anecdotal news I was getting back on Saturday, which is why I was concerned, was they were saying the mayor said we don't have to leave. That message had already gotten through to folks. And so folks were not getting on our buses to leave. So I'm not plugged into where the shelters are. We're getting that now, okay? Because as I started to hear the anecdotal information about more and more people there, that's why I called the county executive. Our OEM is working with the county OEM to make sure that we get as much of that information as we can. And when we get it, we'll be sure to pass it on to you folks. But the city made it very clear that the city wanted to go it on its own. Other questions? Yeah. Couple of accidents, but nothing that I would consider major. Certainly no loss of life, Heather. Couple accidents with emergency vehicles and stuff, but nothing that I would consider significant. No major injuries or loss of life. Kind of typical stuff. Well, we're closing state offices tomorrow, okay? And I'm asking that schools be closed tomorrow. I still don't think we can assess what's going to happen in the next 6 hours. It's not like this is over. Okay, we have the worst 6 hours of the storm coming right now, between 6 o'clock and midnight tonight. So no one should take a false sense of comfort now, saying, okay, well, it's over, we're okay. First of all, if you're along the coastline, you're not. And secondly, other things can happen in the central and northern part of the states in the next 6 hours and its aftermath. So I would still say to people that the safest route for them to take is to not be on the roadways tomorrow. And as I traveled the roadways a little bit today myself, and it seems like most people were observing that. The roadways were very empty. At least the major highways that I was traveling on were very empty today. So I think most people were observing that. I'm not ordering the closing of private businesses. I don't think we're at that stage. But I certainly can say that I'm urging them to use common sense, and that one more day may allow them to avoid a great deal of inconvenience and perhaps something worse. Yeah, Angie.
Just to clarify, so in addition to, going back to Atlantic City, so in addition to telling residents of Atlantic City that they could stay in the city, are you saying that the administration actually rebuffed state efforts to try to get people out?
No, that's not what I'm saying. They were sending counter messages. You know, I'm saying get off the island. They're saying you can stay here as a shelter of last resort. So what happens is when you have that competing messaging, Angie, and the mayor's messaging came out first before mine, we drove buses through there, NJ Transit buses, to go around. We had done this a year ago in Irene to pick people up and to take them to either county shelters or state-supported shelters. We have anecdotal reports back from the folks who were manning those buses that folks were saying to them, we don't need to leave. Mayor said we can shelter here. So I'm not saying that they directly were saying, you know, we don't want your help. But he was sending out a message that was counter to my message. And as a result, people were going with the message they heard first, and they heard his first. And so they stayed, or at least some of them did. Now, listen, a whole bunch of them left, too, and followed the messages and didn't listen to the mayor. But, you know, I don't know what his explanation is for it.
Did you get a lower compliance rate this time in Atlantic City than with Irene?
Hard to tell yet, but anecdotally, it sounds like we did. Yeah. But we don't have because I still don't know the number that are there. But if the anecdotal reports I'm getting are right, then yes, we had a significantly lower compliance rate in Atlantic City this time than we had in Irene.
How recently was your administration in contact with Atlantic City? And at any point did anybody in your administration say, this is it, this is the very last time that we can get you out? And what time did that happen?
Well, I was saying that I don't know whether we had any direct conversations with Atlantic City, although I know we were coordinating with County OEM, which is our procedure throughout. And we told people yesterday, I had, whatever my press availability was, it was after the 4 o'clock deadline on Saturday. I was telling people, you know, we're not going to be able to help you get out. Yesterday, I was saying to people, you know, we need to help people. If there's any last time you can get out, you need to get out. So I think I was saying it over and over again, Elise, but whether or not those messages were being sent directly to County OEM in a telephone call, the only thing I could tell you is that county OEMs were all on the local officials' calls that we were conducting on Sunday and today. So, and those same messages that I was giving behind the podium here, I was giving to folks on those calls. So there's no chance that anybody in Atlantic City can honestly claim they didn't know that we wanted them to leave. And then we sent New Jersey Transit buses down there without their request. We did that voluntarily. So I don't think anybody can honestly say that they didn't know we wanted them to leave. They knew full well we wanted them to leave. Michael.
Governor, about 2 weeks ago, or maybe 3, you said that Mayor Lorenzo Langford is impossible to work with. Is this the latest chapter in a feud that goes back to the creation of the tourism district?
It's not a feud, Michael. I mean, I don't have a feud with the guy. I just wish he'd do his job. I mean, nobody says I'm not doing mine. I wish he'd do his. And that's all my contention is with the mayor, is if he would do his job, then you wouldn't hear all these different people complaining. And you do hear lots of people complaining about the inefficiency and effectiveness, whether it's budgeting, whether it's policing, whether it's services. Talk to the casino owners, talk to the other business owners in Atlantic City, talk to citizens in Atlantic City. That's what I hear. And it certainly has been my experience that Mayor Langford has, I think, as I put it then, has been impossible to work with. And so, you know, and this is another example of it. I mean, you have the governor of the state ordering a mandatory evacuation. Once I sign that declaration of state emergency, that power is the power of the governorship. and you have a mayor, a rogue mayor, telling his citizens not to leave, that it's okay not to leave. I mean, I don't know what you call that. I don't call it effective governance. So I don't want to say this is a feud, because I got to tell you the truth, Michael. I don't spend 5 minutes thinking about Lorenzo Langford. And I think if you're feuding with somebody, you'd have to spend some time thinking about him. The only time I think about Lorenzo Langford is when I have to do things in Atlantic City. So, you know, I wish he'd just do his job. It would make everybody's life a lot easier, or get the hell out of the way, one or the other. Other questions? Any other questions from anybody? Okay. Oh, Jen, I'm sorry. You know, Jim?
We'll have an assessment tomorrow. Let's see what the weather looks like.
Yeah, again, let's see what the flooding and other things look like.
Your briefing schedule and your whereabouts tonight.
Okay, so I will be doing Ask the Governor tonight at in an hour, a little less than an hour, at 7 o'clock. My family is without power in Mendham, so they are being transported by the state police down here. I think they're going to meet me actually at Ask the Governor, because they've always wanted to see that. So they're going to meet me at Ask the Governor, and I think we're going to stay at Drumthwacket tonight. At least as of the last information I got, Drumthwacket had power. So that beats Mendham at the moment. So I think they're coming down here. I will not be briefing again tonight unless something drastically changes. And I think you can expect that we will be briefing tomorrow morning. My guess is probably somewhere between 10 and 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll send out a final schedule. Maria Shop will send it out to you. But I think you can expect between 10 and 11 tomorrow morning we'll do another briefing, because that'll give me enough time to at least get some kind of initial assessment of what's happened overnight, so I can give you guys some information that's useful. Other questions? Jenna? Don't know yet. I haven't spoken to Kevin and Charlie yet. I don't know what they have in mind for me. So we'll see. I'm going to do a local elected officials call at 8:30 after Ask the Governor. And that's the last thing I know on my schedule for tonight. I am sure that they're in the midst of preparing my schedule for tomorrow, but I don't have it yet. So I don't know. We'll tell you as soon as we know. I don't have a firm time, but I would say sometime between 10 and 11 would be the best guess. Other questions from anybody? Let me just say one last thing, folks out there. Remember, please stay home. Stay home. We're riding out the last 6 hours of this thing. Let's everybody stay calm. Stay with your families. Stay safe. We're going to continue to work with the folks you see standing up here and the thousands of other people across the state in emergency management who are doing a great job to try to keep you safe. And we'll see you on. This is just a shameless commercial for you, McCardle, but we'll see you in 53 minutes on New Jersey 101.5 for Ask the Governor, and then back again tomorrow morning. Thank you all very much.